Hello, everybody. This is Reid, Tracy again for the Hay House World Summit 2014 edition. And today I have with me Dr. Wayne Dyer, my good buddy and Hay House author. And we're going to talk about a few new things today that he hasn't really been sharing too much with people yet. The radio show people might have had a glimpse, and a few of the live people, which is a new book he's reading, and we're going to get his ideas about that. But I wanted to start off with talking about divine love. And in your latest PBS show, Wayne, I can see clearly now the final step is divine love, and you've just recently done 2 weekend-long workshops on divine love in Maui over the last 2 years, and I'd just love to hear what your description of what divine love is and why it's so important to us as a way to get started here today.
Absolutely, Reid. It's a different kind of love. I mean, that word love, of course, my old buddy Leo Biscaglia. I don't know that you ever had a chance to know or meet Leo. He passed away, about a decade ago or so. But he was one of the first people on PBS he was really the way shower on how to make PBS specials, and he actually wrote me a letter just about a week or so before he passed on, and encouraged me to use that medium to reach as many people as possible with the message that I was writing about at that time. And he had written many, many books on love, and there's I also became acquainted with a great teacher in Bulgaria. His name was Peter Dunov. Peter Dunov was born in 1864, and he died in 1944 when I was 4 years old, which is very fascinating because when I think about it, our lives overlapped, and he was born in the middle of the Civil War. So that's a fascinating thing how connected we all are, and how how much of a role time plays in our life. It's hard to imagine that I was connected to someone who was alive during the Civil War. At any rate, this great man who was a spiritual master in Bulgaria, who wrote over 250 books, most of them on this concept of divine love. And if you don't know who this man was, and you probably don't, Albert Einstein said of him, he said when he was at the height of his popularity, he said, "The whole world bows before me, and I bow before Peter Dunov." And so Peter Dunov was the man who was absolutely responsible for none of the Jews in World War II that were living in Bulgaria being sent to the concentration camps, because he was able to locate the Tsar of Bulgaria, who was in hiding when the Nazis came in and occupied Bulgaria. And just through his own consciousness was able to locate him, and the Tsar was the only one that would give permission for the trains to go with all of the people that were loaded on them to head out. Some 48,000 people were being sent to Auschwitz and Dachau and Buchenwald and these horrible concentration camp places in World War II. And because of Peter Dunov and just his awareness and his deep connection to God, he was able to make sure that those trains were not allowed to go. It's a long story. I don't want to have time to go into it all now, but he was a fascinating man. And I did a past life regression a couple of years ago, and one of the things that really surprised me very deeply was when I was in this past life regression. And then I saw a copy of a picture of Peter Dunov. It looked like this had been someone that I had overlapped with in my life. It was an amazing experience. When I saw that picture, I almost fainted, because that's exactly who I saw myself as being, even though our lives overlapped, which makes parallel lives and all of this wonderful area of exploration a fascinating concept. At any rate, Peter Dunov talked about the 3 kinds of love. He said there's human love, and human love is a kind of love that changes and a kind of love that varies. It's the kind of love that we have in our relationships a lot, and I love you today and not so much as I did before because you forgot to do this, or you didn't remember my birthday, or you didn't bring home what I asked you to do, or whatever it might be. And so our love goes up and down, and it varies. Sometimes it's very strong, sometimes it's not so strong at all, and so on. Then he said there's another kind of love, and that is what he called spiritual love. And spiritual love is a love that is changeless. It just never changes. It does vary. It is sometimes very high and sometimes low, but it's the love that we have for our children, no matter what they do or how they behave or whatever. There's this intensity of connection, if you will. And so spiritual love is a love that's always there, but it does vary. And then he said there's another kind of love, and it's the kind of love that our source has for us, and it's the place from which we all originate. It's the place to which we all return. This is called divine love. And divine love is the love that God has for us, or that our source has for us. And it's a love that never changes, and it's a love that never varies. It's just one continuous thing. It's all that there is. And getting to this place in our life is, I've often quoted T.S. Eliot, the great American poet. He said, "We shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time." To come to know this, I believe that T.S. Eliot was speaking about death there, the death of the body. I'm not. I don't think we have to die. I don't think we have to leave our bodies to know this divine love for the first time in our lives. It's a return to our source. And when we're with our source, there are no opposites. And what I mean by that is that the divine love is something called, it's oneness. It can't be divided. You can't cut it up. You can't carve it up. It's like the number 0. No matter how many times you cut it, no matter how many times you multiply by it, it's always the same. And I've often used the example, if you lived on the sun, and that's a hard thing to imagine, but imagine living on the sun, where the temperature is 978 degrees Fahrenheit. Would you have a concept of this idea of darkness? And you think, well, because the sun is the source of all light, there could never be anything as darkness. So there's no opposite. You'd only see light. That would be 24 hours a day for infinity, for eternity. It would always be light because you're with the source. And when you're with the source of love, there is no opposite. And it's hard for us to imagine that, because if I ask you, what's the opposite of joy, you would say, well, sadness. We always know what the opposite is. What's the opposite of love? Well, we can say fear or hate or rage or whatever it might be. But it's hard for us to imagine in this physical plane that we're in, which always has these dualities, a world in which there are no opposites, a world in which all you know is love. Now, our dear friend and Hay House author Anita Moorjani, in her wonderful book Dying to Be Me, describes it as well as anyone I've ever seen when she talks about what it was like to be in that realm in which there was absolutely no such thing as an opposite of just this supreme bliss and joy and just exquisite fulfillment in every single second. No possibility of anything opposite from that. That's what divine love is. It's I've often quoted the poet Hafiz. He said, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Just think what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole world. And I think, Reid, my goal has been, as I wrote, I Can See Clearly Now, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next in my life. It has been to climb this ladder, if you will, that is placed before us. As Rumi said, when we are born, a ladder is placed before us to help us to escape from this world. And I think that ladder has certain rungs to it, but the top level of that ladder to help us to understand what it means to be in this world, but not to be of this world. So you're in the world, you're filling out the forms, you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do, you're paying your taxes, you're a good citizen, but there's a part of you that recognizes that you're really not of this world. There's something within you that is birthless and deathless, and that has no form, which means it has no beginning and it has no end, and it's always growing and it's always expanding. It's that inner world of our thoughts, and this inner world is not of this world. There are no opposites to it, and the only way that you can come to know it is by going into something called silence and meditation. That's why meditation and silence and getting quiet is probably the biggest key to fulfilling yourself in your life, because, again, when you're in silence, there is no opposite. The opposite of silence isn't noise, as much as we like to think of it as. Silence is like zero. No matter how many times you multiply it by anything, it always stays the same. You can take silence and try to cut it in half and say, okay, now do you have more silence? There's no such thing. There's just pure silence. And in that silence, when you have no opposites, there are no dichotomies, there's no duality. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the great Hindu book of that Gandhi based his life upon, they talk about transcending these opposites, these dualities, and that's where I've been in my life, Reid. And I think
that's what you keep trying to strive for sure. I know that. Like,
yeah,
I do.
Learning
more and more and more, and you always share with people so much of what you're learning.
I do, and it's also it's a feeling. It's something that I experience every single day. Like I wake up in the morning, and my first words out of my mouth when I awaken are "thank you," in a deep state of gratitude. And then before I even leave the bedroom, or even to go to the restroom, or whatever it might be, I think to myself, what can I do today? Can I do one thing before I even start this day to make somebody else's life better, whether it's one of my children, or whether it's a letter that I've received from someone, or whether it's a phone call that I can make. I mean, I did it, for example, I did it this morning. Today is April the 21st. April the 21st happens to be not only the date that I had my experience with John of God, in which leukemia was removed from my body, but it was also the day of my mother's birth. My mother was born on April the 21st, 1916. So today she would be 98 years of age. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about her, and I thought, what can I do in my mother's honor, in my mother's name? Because she was such a good woman, such a strong, beautiful soul, and struggled so much in her early life. And I was just so blessed to have been able to come into enough financial ability to make her life, really, really wonderful in the last years of her life. But so I just picked up the phone and I called my brother David, who was with me through all the years that we spent in foster homes and orphanages until my mother was able to get her life back together again in 1949, when I was almost 10 years old. And remarry and get us back. And you've heard me tell this story many times. But this morning, I just called my brother Dave, and I just said, Dave, it's Mother's birthday. He said, I know. He said, I was just thinking about her. And then right after this interview, I'm going to call my brother Jim. He wasn't there. He fell off of a ladder the other day and hurt himself. But and we just reminisced, and that's like, and I was thinking about my brother Dave, who's got Parkinson's disease pretty seriously now. He was in Vietnam, and through the Agent Orange thing and all of that. And we just, I know that phone call to my brother, and just talking to him, just about an hour ago, was just a good way to start off the day. And this is something that I do every single day, just to try to do something to improve the quality of life for somebody someplace, whatever it might be. And I practice it more and more in my life. And I think what it is, Reid, I think it's learning to find the part of ourselves that isn't so personal, that isn't so related to our personalities and who we are and what we've accumulated and what we've achieved and what we own and all of this stuff of the ego. It's moving past that into a place where you recognize that there's something divine in each and every one of us, that we all share, that we all come from this place. And this is something not only that I think I need to do in my life and in my own family, and in my lectures and everything, but I think the world needs it. I think we're at a crisis point in our world right now, and we just need more people living from a place of divine love, and recognizing that when we get there, when enough of us get there, we can truly, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a dear friend of mine, and she once said that if you shield the mountain from the windstorms, you'll never see the beauty of the carvings. And it's like we can look past all of the storms of our life, all of the things that are going on, all of the stuff that we read about that is such a problem for us as humanity, and get something out of that and move to a higher, more spiritual place. That's where I am in my life. I think I was sent here with a big assignment to really get to this place. And believe me, I traversed through the ego and all of the beliefs that it was Wayne Dyer and how important I was and how smart I was and all of the things that I thought that was me, and none of it was. Who I am is a divine piece of God, and I've learned to really tame that ego as much as I possibly can.
In your book, I can see clearly now you tell so many stories from your life, and so many people are able to read the different stories of your life and live with them. Like that book's probably my favorite book, definitely, that you've done in the last 10 years. And it's amazing because it makes you think back at your life. That's what a lot of the people are saying in the reviews, that by you sharing like so much about your life from when you were a little kid all the way up till now, that people are really benefiting because they're looking back at their own life and seeing maybe some benefits that they didn't see before, or an understanding better of maybe things didn't go exactly as they thought, but it turned out better for them. And you share in there so many stories like that are maybe weren't the greatest when they happened, but now that when you look back, it turned out to make you who you are today, and maybe even get you closer to that understanding of divine love. Was your purpose of writing that book to kind of stir that thinking among people?
Well, nobody knows more about the history of how that book got written than you do, because you and I talked about it a lot before I decided that I was going to do it. But the truth of it is that I was just directed to do that, just like, and that's one of the things I've recognized in the writing of that book, that that was true for everything that went on in my life, and it's true for something that's going on right now. That we think that we're in charge and that we're making all of these decisions, and that we're, I'm going to decide whether should I move here, should I move there, should I go out with this person, or should I marry that person, or should I take that job, or should I turn right, or should I turn left? And then you get to a point where you start to realize that there's something else that's moving these pieces around in your life, and that one of the ways that I describe it is one of the great teachers in my life was Carl Jung. I was going to become a Jungian analyst, and Carl Jung said that. He said, at the same moment that you're a protagonist in your own life and you're making choices, he said, at the very same moment, you're also the spear carrier or the extra in a much larger drama. And he concluded that little observation with this. He said, in essence, he said, you are all doomed to make choices. You're doomed to make choices. Now, there's a paradox, isn't it? I mean, if you're doomed, then there's no choices to be made. And if you're making choices, then you're obviously not doomed. And he said that's the case. It's like, and so in order to understand the paradox of what he's saying and to put it into the context of what we're talking about here, it's like I always think about the body that you showed up in. The body that I showed up in is about 6'2". And it's got blue eyes, and it's got white skin, and it's got no hair on its head. But it does have hair in its ears and on its shoulders and in places I'm not sure I want to grow it, and my nose and so on. And there's all kinds of things. In Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, said that he said, you're not doing anything, you're just being done. You're just being done. And you have to look at your body and you realize that you're just being done. So the essence of it is that you are doomed in the sense of that's the body you're going to be. And you happen to be in a male Caucasian body that is a certain height and so on. And somebody else listening to this is in a female body that's 5'2", and someone's in a body that has got darker skin, and someone's got eyes that are a little bit slanted or whatever it might be. And we all just show up in these bodies that we're in, and we're really sort of doomed in these bodies. But we're also making choices about these bodies all the time. And the choices that we're making are in connection with the essence, the part of us, the physical part of us that is doomed. But we get to decide how healthy is this body going to be. So what kind of foods am I going to eat? Am I going to exercise this body? Or am I going to just let it lay around and just get heavier, and am I going to let it disappear and dissolve and so on? It's like every single day of my life, I am making choices about this body that I'm sort of doomed to live in. And I try to keep it as healthy as I possibly can. I try to give it fresh juices. I try to meditate. I meditate with this body. I go into the ocean and swim with it. I go to yoga class and am conscious of that. I don't put alcohol into it. I don't put drugs into it. In other words, it's like I am making choices within a context of things already being taken care of. So that's the metaphor. Now you extend this metaphor beyond your body and say, okay, maybe what Jung is talking about there is true for the rest of my body as well, in my life as well. And that is that I am, it's all been laid out for me, the whole thing. But within that context, there are choices for me to make all along. And I've been making these kinds of choices, and that's what I can see clearly now has really taught me in the writing of that book, is that, yes, I have a real good friend who's a great artist. And she has just this amazing ability to draw, but she's never gotten herself around to really doing very much with it because she's always busy, because she's got other obligations, and she's got a million reasons, or I call excuses in a book I wrote called Excuses Be Gone, are about, all the reasons why she cannot fulfill herself as an artist. Now, for me, I know that I came into this world to write. I know that I came in to be a speaker. I know that I was given a great gift of being able to put words together in a certain way, whether I'm speaking or whether I'm writing or not. But there are so that's all laid out there. Now you have the opportunity to make course corrections all around within a context of it's all laid out there for you, because there's no accidents in this universe. There's an intelligence behind everything in this universe. And this intelligence is so profound that it is always nudging us and pushing us. It's not going to do it for us any more than we're given a body that is, a certain way. You can allow this body to get fat. You can allow this body to get lethargic. You can allow this body to get unhealthy. You can allow it to die and just move on. And your dharma, which has been laid out for you, just like your body, it just ends right there, and then you move on into the next lifetime, if that's the way it works. I'm not sure how that works on the other side. So what we want to do is become aware of the choices that we make within the context of ourselves as already having our whole life laid out for us. And these are the steps. I talk about them a little bit in the PBS special that I did. You have to have a willingness to follow through on what impulses are being directed your way, and that's something that I can see clearly now is really all about. I mean, when a choice would come up for me to move to another city or to go in a different direction, the question was I willing to do it? Another choice that you make all along throughout your whole life is this is just like the choice of whether you're going to eat well, or you're going to exercise well, or you're going to take good care of this body. Now you have to take good care of your dharma. You have to take good care of your destiny, of what you showed up here for. And so now you say, okay, yes, I'm willing. So I don't have anything on my unwillingness list. That's a choice that you make within the context of you're already being doomed. Are you determined? How strong are you in making this happen? Are you are you fearless? So many people live their whole lives terrified that if I do this or if I don't do that, or if somebody isn't going to like me, or it's not going to work out, or I can't do it because, I do a radio show here every Monday. I've been doing it 7 or 8 years now, and most of the time it's people saying I can't do what I would really like to do because I just can't afford it. It's the financial part of it. It's very interesting, Reid. I was looking at some of the there was a posting on my Facebook page that you posted, I think yesterday or the day before. It was an excerpt from I Can See Clearly Now, and it was about in 2005 when I came to Maui to write and live as a Taoist for a year, and to write a book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, based on the ancient teachings of Lao Tzu 2,500 years ago. And in there, I talk about how I just gave up everything, and I left, and I came to Maui. And for a year, I lived, I read each one of these verses. There are 81 verses in the Tao Te Ching. And I felt compelled to do this. There was something pulling me in this direction. And and every time I turned around, there was something about the Tao. You remember our great friend Stuart Wilde. He lived by the Tao Te Ching. He used to hand me copies of it years ago when I was traveling with him in Australia and in Europe. And he would say, "You got to read this, Wayne. This book is just so." And then I read a book called A Million Little Pieces. Remember, Reid?
Yeah.
We were reading that together. And all throughout is a mention of James Fry's talking about how the Tao. And then we're in Las Vegas. You remember we did a program there in Las Vegas. And we go to dinner in a restaurant. And what's the name of the restaurant? The Tao, in one of the hotels there. At the whole theme of it was the Tao. And then I turn on the television set, and there's a reminder. Something mentions the Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching. And then a picture. Somebody sends me a card, a greeting card in the mail, and there's a picture of Lao Tzu on the front of it with a saying from the Tao Te Ching. And when this happens enough, you start to say, "What the hell's going on here?" It's like, is somebody directing me? Why does the Tao thing keep showing up? Because it's part of what was laid out there for us, but we still have to make our choices. And I came here and I made the choice, and I wrote the book, and someone on the internet said it was the greatest interpretation of the Tao for modern man ever written, which I thought was a pretty nice compliment. But there were also an enormous number of people who responded to that, who said things like, well, if I had a place in Maui, then, I could go off and do that too. And, oh, you just left, and you left your assistant to get rid of everything, and it's like, you just take off and leave her, like. And I was thinking, I want to respond back. She was getting paid. That was her job. Her job was to take care of this. She worked for him. That's what an assistant is. But more than that, I was thinking throughout reading all of these different responses to that, everybody was saying, you were blessed. You had a place to come to, and you could just go off and do that. And you could leave your, responsibilities back home and let somebody else take care of it. I can't do those things, or I can't afford to do that. I don't have and all I was thinking back was, throughout all of that, is that those are just never things that ever popped into my mind about why I should or shouldn't follow this thing that was just calling me so much. It wouldn't have made any difference whether I had happened to have a place on Maui or whether I was going to go off on the east side of Detroit and check into a motel to do it. It wouldn't make any difference because I didn't have anything on my unwilling list. Whereas so many people look at a story like that and say, yeah, well, he could do it because, he had all of this, he was a famous person and he made all of this money and he had a place that he could go and his kids were older and whatever. And these are all the things that we use all the time to explain away why our life isn't being fulfilled the way we feel it was destined to be filled out. And I think that's the message, that's the lesson of I Can See Clearly Now. As I look back on all of these decisions and these things that happened to me, there was a part of me, and it's so true and we got to give the Jung quote again to summarize this, at the same moment that you're a protagonist in your own life and you're making choices, you're also the spear carrier or the extra in a much larger drama. There's a much larger thing going on here, and there is something taking care of it all. All you have to do is recognize that your sense of being doomed doesn't mean that you can't do something about it. You still have choices to make, and these choices that you get to make involve, whether or not you're going to be compassionate, whether you're going to be a loving person, whether you're going to be willing, whether you're going to have the determination, whether you're going to get rid of the fear and the anxiety of the outcome that is going to come your way because you've already laid out a disaster in your mind. It's like you get an openness. You have a mind that's, Talopa said in the 10th century, have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing, attached nowhere. And that's pretty much the way I've lived my life. Just being willing and determined and fearless until you ultimately, as you climb this ladder and keep climbing and climbing to this place where you start to recognize that it's all about love, Reid. It's all about love. And, you were with me when I did the thing with John of God. And you know what happened when the entities from John of God visited me back there 3 years ago, and it's like exactly 3 years ago today, April the 21st, 2011.
And then they visited you again here a year.
Absolutely.
What was that? That was like a year ago or something.
Yes, it was, and it was, and in what they did though, the thing is like a lot of people think, well, yeah, sure, because you're famous again, and you're Wayne Dyer, and they're going to come and see you. But I'm no more famous than than that palm tree I'm looking at, or the bug that's crawling up the trunk of it, or the person who's begging for something on the street corner in Calcutta today. We all come from the same place, and we all return to the same place. And it's like, how willing are you? And what these entities did for me with this leukemia was they didn't take away the leukemia. What they did is they took away the fear, and removed it and replaced it with love, replaced it with divine love, because it was just a few weeks later I was celebrating my 71st birthday in San Francisco when I was doing the film about my father, my greatest teacher, and I was. All I wanted to do that morning of my birthday, my 71st birthday, was to get up and go out. And I went downstairs at the St. Francis Hotel, and I had $2,000 on my credit card, and I got $2,000 in $50 bills, and I went out to Union Square, and all I did the entire day from 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was compelling. It was pulling me in such a strong direction, and all I wanted to do was just go out and serve people, and talk to people who were homeless on the streets, and people who hadn't had baths and clothes cleaned in maybe years, who knew, and putting my arms around them and talking to them, not just giving them money. I did that as well, but more than that, it was sharing with them and talking to them. I can still remember these people and even some of their names of that day. It was an overwhelming, strong, compelling need to go do it. And I know that's going to lead into where we're heading next. So,
yeah, well, it seems like that you always are sharing what you're learning. Like you mentioned the Tao and John of God, and you've talked to us about Ahs and Ohms and meditations for manifesting and gluten-free living and how that changed you. And now I know this because you called me up and said, hey, Reid, can you send me a bunch of copies of this book called
20.
The Impersonal Life? And I said, what's that? I don't see any Hay House on that book. What are you doing reading other books than Hay House books? And you said, someone gave it to me. I read it. I want you to read it, which I have it here. And I have like yellow sticky markers all over this book. Like it would take us 3 days to talk about everything that I have marked on here, but it was a book that was put together really by Joseph Boehner in September 13, 1916 is when he put like the preface, and I think he died in like 1941 or something.
Yeah.
and it's like it's kind of what I think in my mind as it's kind of an original Conversations with God, because it's basically a book that I guess he says God wrote through him.
Yeah, it's a lot like A Course in Miracles or the Urantia book. My belief is that everything is channeled, that none of this comes from our ego and from us, because our egos are really illusions about who we are. But let me share a little bit about this with you, because it's it's very seldom. In fact, it's the only time I've ever received a book that I've read. I've read now 3 times in the last 2 weeks or so. I read it all the way through, and then I read it one chapter at a time, and then I outlined every single chapter. And I've got tons and tons of notes on it. So something is calling me. What I'm going to do with it, because it's a lot like the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know, somehow. The Bhagavad Gita was written from the perspective of Krishna, God, speaking to Arjuna, saying, this is who I am. And this is sort of like the highest part of ourselves speaking. It's like God speaking to us, only God isn't something external to ourselves. It's the highest place within us, and that we're all attributes of this, and that there's this voice that is always talking to us inside of us. And this voice is the voice of our source, and it's a voice of divine love. And it's guiding us all the time, and we pay attention to it sometimes, and sometimes we don't. And so, by way of just sort of, I'm just going to do a little short reading from this, and I'm just open to. I'm not quite sure whether I want to take this book and write and just clear it up and do something like I did with the Bhagavad Gita, with the Tao Te Ching, in the Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I don't know. I'm still open I'm still exploring. But, and I keep asking myself, because there's a chapter in here, there's 18 chapters in here, which is exactly the same number of chapters as there is in the Bhagavad Gita, 18, and there's 81 verses in the Tao Te Ching, 81, and the number 18 in Hebrew means Chayim, means life. So it's that, and if you look at the number 18, 1, and the 8 is the symbol of infinity, so it's one infinite source, or infinite source once. And I used to kind of poo-poo numerology and think of all of it until I met a woman who was a numerologist who had written several books about it, and she just totally blew my mind with what she was showing me about how numbers, what they play in our life. Again, one of those areas, I have a mind that's open to everything. And attached to nothing. It's like that quote I did in the PBS special, remember, about Mark Twain. It's not the things that you don't know that get you into trouble. It's the things that you know for sure that just ain't so. Right. Those are the things that get you into trouble. So a lot of things we know for sure, and then we find out they just ain't so. And a lot of that is like what I learned, and I can see clearly now, as I was going through all of these stories while they were taking place in my life, while I was being directed to write this or to do that, I thought it was all me making all of these choices. And now as I look back at them, I can see that there was something guiding me. And just like there's something guiding me right now, because this is an infinite source. It doesn't stop any place.
Did you know this book was that, who loved this book? Elvis Presley.
I do. It was with him when he died. Yeah. In fact, he said it was the only book that ever spoke truth to him. And he quoted it and carried it with him wherever he went. And the interesting thing is, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like the first chapter is called I Am, or the first section.
It is, yeah.
So it's kind of an extension of Wishes Fulfilled, too. The ideas that you presented in there, it kind of takes it even one step further, I think.
Well, one of the key things that it says in there is that every desire that we have, we get ideas all the time. We're always hearing ideas about this, about that. We read things, we look at the news, whatever, and ideas just keep popping into our heads. But there's something different in there about a desire. And so you get an idea, but you have a desire about that idea, and that desire, according to Joseph Benner in the Impersonal Life, he's saying, as God is speaking through us, that every desire that you have is placed there by me, meaning the highest self within you. And that, and so when you have a desire, it's like, this is like my way of directing you, to fulfill this dharma that was laid out for you, just like your body was laid out for you. So all of your talents, whatever abilities that you have been laid out there for you, and they're laid out for humanity as well. And the interesting thing is, Reid, that this book was written from all the research I can find on it. It was written in 1914, first published in 1916, and then and that's 100 years ago exactly. And then published. It was published for the first 25 years under the name Anonymous, because this man was a Lutheran minister in Akron, Ohio, Joseph Benner, and he didn't want. I think he didn't want his congregation and the Lutheran Church and all of them to. I'm just guessing now. I haven't really researched it that much, but he didn't want them to see what he was saying here, because it would be inconsistent with a lot of the teachings, of the Lutheran Church and so on. So he just allowed it to be published as an anonymous book until 1940, which is the year that I was born. When he passed away, and his wife decided that that it should be published under his name, and she revealed who he was and that he was a minister there and so on. And so I get a hold of this book. It was, even the way I got a hold of it is strange. It's fascinating to me. And it's like I start reading this and I thought, oh my God, this is the next step for me. This is just one of those things, because it planted a desire in me. And the desire wasn't so much to what I'm going to do with this or how I'm going to go about doing it. The desire was to just understand this, and what it means, and to apply it every day in my life with my children, with my work, with my relationship to you, to Hay House, to everything. It's like, how can I come from this place of knowing that God is within me, and that it's always speaking to me. And the 17th chapter of this book is called Finding Me. So how do you go about finding and getting a hold of? And the last chapter is called Union. So you unify yourself with this divine inner sense of who you are, that is always speaking to you and always encouraging you and placing desires in your mind that are consistent only with the idea that they don't stop anybody else from being able to fulfill their desires. So that whatever desire that you have, even the desires that may be taking you in a negative direction, in a hurtful place, if every desire is placed there by this intelligence that is in all things, that it's what animates all of life, then sometimes you have to go down before you can go up. And so many of the obstacles that I wrote about, and I can see clearly now, the tough times, the addictions that I went through, the breakups, the separation from my wife, and so on. These kinds of things which you think, oh, how could this possibly be happening to me? Why do I have to go through this? Oh no, we've lost everything in a fire, or oh, this accident, or all of this, and that this is the way that we fulfill our dharma, by going up and by going down, and ultimately getting down low enough that every spiritual advance that we make is almost always preceded by some kind of a fall of some kind, and it's like, and this is all part of it as well. So I'm thinking about this, Reid, every day, and as you know, I talk to you every single day. So, and I'm telling you how important this is, and I really want you to read this, and I want you to give me some ideas, because maybe you're going to be the one who's going to, because in a lot of the books that I've written, the last 4 or 5, 6 books that I've written, we've always talked about in advance, and you kind of, we direct, we have a conversation, and then you'll pick up the phone and say, why don't you go this way or do that? And I'll say, yeah, that's a great idea. And before you know it, I've got the format, just like we did for I Can See Clearly Now. So I thought for sure that you would have some kind of an input with this thing as well. And I'm thinking about how do I find this and get a hold of this and make it something that is applicable. It isn't too esoteric. It isn't too out there, too far away, because as you said to me before we even started this conversation, it's pretty far out there, and it's very, it's not as specific as I would like it to be. So I'm thinking about that, and I get up, and it was about 10 days ago or so, and one of the things that I do is whenever I go to the bank, there's a woman at the bank there. Her name is Cheyenne, and she has 3 children under the age of 5, and 2 twins in there, a set of twins, and another child. and her husband has a pretty serious illness. He's not able to work. He's got diabetes pretty bad. So every time I go to the bank, whenever I get some cash back, and I have 8 kids and they come to visit me here on Maui, and so cash is something that you need a lot of when the kids come visit you. And,
it's
so
amazing how that works, right?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You know the story too. Right? So anyway, so I'm thinking about Cheyenne, and I'm thinking, because I always slip her $100 or $200 after I get whatever cash I get. I just put it under a little envelope there, and I just slide it under there. And I've been doing this for years, and we've never even talked about it. I just always slide it under there. I don't want to get her to get into any trouble. I don't even know if there is trouble. I don't know if there would be a problem with that or not. I've never asked. It's just something that I do. And then when I go to the cleaners, because I'm getting ready to travel, I pick up the clothes. There's a woman that works there. Her name's Elsie. She's about 4'10", and she probably weighs 300 pounds. Very heavy, short lady, but she works in this dry cleaning place that's hot and stifling in there and so on. I always feel for her. So I'm thinking about these two people, and it's the morning, and I've got to go to the bank, but I know that Cheyenne has a very strange lunch hour, and I can't remember whether it's early or late or whatever. And I'm thinking I've got to go to the bank today, and all I can think about is it doesn't matter about what time I go to the bank. What matters is that I'm there when Cheyenne is there, so that I can make sure that she gets this money that I give her, and then I'll have time to stop at the cleaners and see Elsie, and I always slip her $100 or $200, and then come back. And I'm only thinking about getting to the cleaners and getting to the bank in terms of how can I serve these people. It's just like, nobody knows this except me. Now you know, and the world knows it. But so I get back. So instead of waiting until later in the day and maybe not being there for her lunch hour or whatever, I decide I'm going to go now. This was about 8:30, 8:45. I said the bank opens at 9. I know she'll be there then, and I'll just get it over with and I'll go do it for the express purpose of just being able to be there for them. That was like my internal motivation. I'm not saying this to make myself look good. I'm saying this because this is absolutely the truth. So I do all of that. I get back, I stop at the cleaners, get my clothes out, stop at the grocery store, do the things, and get back. And then I'm picking up and I'm reading chapter 17. And here's what it says in chapter 17 under the title, Finding Me. It says, the best and the surest way you may know me being this higher self that is always speaking to you, this God within, this impersonal self, not the personal self. The personal self is Wayne Dyer, who I am, author, 73-year-old man, father, blah, 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 all of the stuff of my life, living here, living there, traveling, and so on. That's all Wayne Dyer's personality. This is the impersonal me, the part of me that is in everything that is alive, that animates all of life. It says, the best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart, and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone, to heal their ills, to relieve their suffering, to bring them happiness, to point out the true way. That is the actual feel of me within you, pushing the personality aside, using your mind and your body for the purpose I created them, as avenues for the expression of my real nature, which is perfect love, the Christ of God, the one vitalizing, quickening, life-giving, strengthening, healing, all-supplying, all-informing power in the universe. So when you feel some kind of a compelling urge and a need to do something, not because of for yourself, but for someone else, and it won't go away, that's the highest self speaking to you. That's this impersonal self of yours speaking to you. And then it says, if you will but turn to me, that is this internal part of you that just wants to serve, and will carefully watch for and study these impressions which you are receiving every moment, and will learn to trust them, and thus to wait upon and rest in me, putting all your faith in me, I will guide you in all your ways. I will solve for you all your problems. I will make easy all your work, and you will be led among green pastures beside the still waters of life. If you will devote but 1 hour each day, and I've been doing this since I read this, and I did it this morning before this interview. If you will devote but 1 hour each day to me alone, that is the impersonal self within you that has nothing to do with your personality, but is what is animating your life and is what is allowing you to have these thoughts. Imagining and practicing the presence of me within you, I here promise you that you will not only soon, very soon find me, but I will be to you an exhaustless fount of such wisdom and strength and help as your human mind now cannot possibly conceive. If you will but seek me, thus making me first in your life, never resting until you do find me, it will not be long before you will become conscious of my presence, of my loving voice speaking constantly from out of the depths of your heart. And that spoke so strongly to me, Reid, and you know me as well as anybody alive, okay, that this is how I live my life. Again, the best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone, to heal them, to relieve their pain, and so on. And that fascinates me beyond anything I can even describe here.
I know, and this book is filled with those kind of lines. Like I have so many of them marked here.
Really?
Like in chapter 5, it's called "This Is Key." This key is, and it says, I mean, the chapter's called "The Key," but he goes on. He says, "This key is to think is to create, or as you think in your heart, so is it with you. Stop and meditate on this, that it may get firmly fixed in your mind. A thinker is a creator. A thinker lives in a world of his own conscious creation. When you once know how to think," and that's in quotations, "you can create at will anything you wish, whether it be a new personality, a new environment, or a new world." I mean, that's like the foundation.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And when we think about what the concept of thinking is. You know, that because there's no form to this. I mean, we can go inside our brains and find the command center, which allows us to have a thought, but we can never find the commander in the command center, which says, "I'm going to wiggle my finger," or "I'm going to go write this book," or "I'm going." That's another world. It's another world of the. It's the world of the infinite. And so every time you think, when you allow yourself to have this thought, you're a part of this creative process, and the inner part of you, the impersonal part of you, which allows all of these thoughts to take place. And the way that it works is that these desires that are placed within us, especially when these desires are pulled in the direction of, how many times, Reid, have we talked about when people make comments about, we'll put something on the Facebook page and it'll say, "Oh, this guy's a snake oil salesman," or all he's doing is out there, he's just making money, he's writing more books and he's just making more money, and why is he always publicizing his books, and why does he do this and all of that? And I think there's anybody who could write something like that has no clue about what it means to sit down and write a book, or to create a painting, or to create a great composition, or whatever. You don't sit there and say, "Okay, there's a whole lot of money to be made, and I'm going to make it by doing this." When you're motivated by the desire to really write something that is going to make somebody else's life better, and to make it easier, and to relieve their ills, and so on, and that's the driving force. That definition of success, that I've given so many times, from Thoreau at Walden Pond, if you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It will chase after you. The money, the fame, all of that other stuff, the position on the bestseller list, all of that. You don't sit down and write and say, I didn't call you and say, "Okay, I'm going to write a book that's going to be on the New York Times bestseller list, and I'm going to make this much money, and I'm going to do." It's like that's not even a possibility And I think that's true of anyone. I think that's true of LeBron James out there playing basketball. I don't think he goes out there and plays the hardest he can play and is considered the greatest basketball player because he says, well, they're paying me $16 million. Of course I have to do that. That's all something that came to him as a result of his passion and his love and following his dream and his excitement. That's how you do it. And that's how, and when people write these comments about, I'm out there just making money off of people and so on, I think, my goodness, if you only knew, even the money that I get, I either give half of it to the government or I give it to my kids. I mean, it's not,
well, and to lots of other people, you give it to.
And
you're
lots
constantly
and lots of
giving it away. Like, there's no doubt
Absolutely.
about. You know, it's so funny that you talk about the LeBron James. I agree 100% with all the greatest athletes that they're that. There's a new movie, I don't know if you've seen it, called Draft Day. And
no, I heard about it. Kevin Costner? Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
And really, like, I'm not going to give the whole movie away, but basically what he does is he finds the players that have that feeling. You know, everyone's trying to get an edge when they're drafting a player. And he's looking for the player that is exactly what you said, that like they make the money because they're great players. They don't do it to make the money. It's the opposite is what happens. So
as I'm thinking about the impersonal life, Reid, and what I'm going to do with this and why have I not read it 3 times? Why has this desire been placed in me to read this book 3 times and to outline it carefully and so on when I still don't even know what I'm going to do with it? And I certainly don't need to write another book, and I certainly don't need any more money to write another book and so on. And, you know, and you're I don't even ask for advances.
Right.
You know,
that's correct.
You don't need to pay me any advance for this. I write because it's just something inside of me that I've been doing. The same thing I was doing when I was 14 years old, writing book reports for my friends in the 9th grade, you know, so that they could get a good grade, 25 cents. I guarantee a B or higher. You know, it's like, it's just the idea of writing is just something, you know, and the speaking and so on, all of it, when you get to this place and have this awareness, and it's always amazing to me when I see people making these comments about place their own feelings of inadequacy or not being able to do things like, sure, it's easy for him to go off to Maui and give up everything that he has and just give it all away and give away 20,000 books and give away all of his clothes and give away everything. Yeah, it's easy for him because Baba and gives all the reasons why. And basically all those reasons why it's easy for him are because I don't have the courage or the ability or the willingness or the determination to do it myself. So I'll just project those kinds of thoughts on someone else. And that's exactly how I see this thing. And I'm just so excited about, you know, this concept of having a conversation with something that's inside of us all the time, and it's always talking to us. And every desire that you have is an attribute of this higher self that is moving you in the direction of what you came here to be. Surely, you know, Thoreau was right. If you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams, and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, what's in your imagination, you will let success chase you, and you don't have to go after it yourself. And that's what I'm hoping for when I go into silence and figure out exactly what I'm to do with this wonderful teaching that came to us from 100 years ago.
That's fantastic. And guess what? We're out of time. Our hour's up. So thank you so much for sharing all this incredible wisdom with everyone here at the Hay House World Summit. If it's like last year, we'll reach at least one person from every country in the world. So truly your message will be spread, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Reid, my friend. God bless you. I love you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for spending time with us during the 2014 Hay House World Summit. Our goal is to offer you original content that is inspiring and uplifting. We hope you continue to include us in your journey of living your best life.